You have to stand proudly for the national anthem. Well, you shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
Trying to remind folks that part of what makes this country special is that we respect people's rights to have a different opinion. The test of our fidelity to our Constitution, to freedom of speech, to our Bill of Rights, is not when it's easy, but when it's hard. Sometimes, out of these controversies, we start getting into a conversation, and I want everybody to listen to each other.
When it comes to Donald Trump, there's plenty of material to work with.
How does he become the face of sports media at ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports? Is he there because of his expertise, because of his experience, or is he there because he's willing to lie and exaggerate and tell farcical stories? How?
Did you tell them that? Did you tell them how you stood outside of First Take begging me to talk to you? Did you tell them that once this same article in Deadspin came out, weeks later you wrote a lengthy apology to me in an email, begging me to forgive you, pointing out how you were betrayed by this particular writer, so you know how I must feel that you betrayed me?
For Stephen A. Smith, he sees an opportunity.
On the road is Whitlock.
The truth is not important to him. He's very comfortable lying, exaggerating, misleading.
Even went so far as to say my autobiography, where I talk about my mother, my father, my sisters, the business, my hiring and firing and rehiring at ESPN. I didn't write it. I didn't write my own memoir, which, by the way, is a New York Times bestseller, something he wouldn't know anything about. But he will tell you, I didn't write it. He's seen my writing. Really?
And it's one that he takes great pleasure in. No matter who it is, whether it's this guy or any other, Smith has welcomed what would be his biggest challenge to date.
I'm no political aficionado. So I don't want to come across as somebody who's acting like I know all the issues. I'm adept at it, and I can articulate positions relevant to that with a level of knowledge and intellect that I may not have when it comes to those particular issues. But when I said that I would love to debate Trump, I wasn't lying. Because what y'all don't realize, I don't think I have to be that knowledgeable to debate Trump. I'm just going to say it.
Let's pause here. This would simply lead to an insinuation, if one were taking this in, that Smith believes Donald Trump is not that smart. And to that, we all say, duh. Duh, duh, duh. Smith will, throw some water on that insinuation in a second. But for someone who gloats about having big brain, smart brain, China respects Donald Trump's brain, and he gloats about having the best test scores, the most beautiful test scores. He has never released any of his grades. Just saying.
And I'm not talking about his knowledge. Damn it, he's the former president of the United States. He is privy to intel none of us would ever be privy to. I'm not even questioning any of that. Okay? Bankruptcies aside, lying about his income aside, lying about his wealth and his worth aside. Damn it, the man is either worth billions or hundreds of millions, neither of which I can say.
This is an issue that we have seen Smith, it appears, become warm to, which is if you have and attain a certain affluency in this country or abroad, that makes you some sort of genius. That is not what it means at all. Not in the slightest. From Yahoo Finance, according to a recent study, being a billionaire doesn't necessarily equate to having a superior intellect. In fact, the study reveals that those in the top 1% of earners, aka billionaires, well, they scored lower on cognitive ability tests than those who earn just slightly less than they do. In addition, the Economic Policy Institute concluded in the 10 most populous U.S. states, they found 2.4 million workers lose $8 billion annually, an average of $3,300 per year for year-round workers, to minimum wage violations, nearly a quarter of their earned wages. This form of wage theft affects 17% of low-wage workers, with workers in all demos being cheated out of pay. What billionaires do is they game the system. They understand that the ultra-wealthy are never held accountable in this country, and what they do is divert wages from those who are deserving and simply give the workers scraps at the bottom of the barrel. Not even peanuts, crumbs of peanuts, while they get the whole jar.
I'm not questioning his intelligence. But do I believe that you can stand before me in front of him and I can challenge him to influence folks based on my presentation and delivery on the issues that we both know? Yeah, I don't think it's that hard. I mean, listen to him.
Lots of things, like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, so whatever they want. They turned it down.
So in that moment, the former president last week apparently confusing Nikki Haley with former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who was at the Capitol building on January 6th.
I don't even know who this woman is. I have no idea who she is, where she came from. This is another scam. It's a political witch hunt. And somehow we're going to have to fight this stuff. We cannot let our country go into this abyss. This is disgraceful. You have somebody running for office. You have a woman that's financed and lied about it. She totally lied about it by Democrat operatives, like just about the biggest one there is. And she said that wasn't true. They found that she lied about it, and the judge wasn't even, I guess, letting it be put in as evidence. The whole thing is a scam, and it's a shame, and it's a disgrace to our country.
It ain't that hard to debate him. From a substantive standpoint, the issue in question is, can you match his wit, which nobody seems to be able to do on either side. He doesn't have to speak fluently or substantively on anything. In a debate, you would have to. So what does he do? He doesn't show up for the debates with the Republicans because you don't have anybody that can really debate him and get all over him, because he can distract by bringing up different things and not articulating his position in an in-depth manner on a plethora of other issues. And folks are buying it. And you know what else he does? That's, by the way, brilliant. Because of his ability to use one-liners, jokes, insults, mockery, etc. This is what he does. He forces folks to react to that. And you barely hear anything from him on the issues.
One thing Smith brings up is Donald Trump's clapbacks and some of the examples he cited, calling Jeb Bush low energy and Marco Rubio little Marco. And the point being, another point being rather, when Rubio brought up that Trump has small hands, he would just fire right back as saying, yeah, well, other parts aren't small. The biggest X factor to me is not the clapbacks. It is, and this is something that could be debated as well, should presidential debates be in front of a crowd? Think about how it shifts a viewer's perception. Now look, we have a very smart audience at the Turks. I understand that. There are other audiences, of course. Is an answer or a response or a rebuttal or to start out an entire answer. Is it going to be swayed? Rather, is the crowd going to sway how a viewer takes this in? I say yes. Because even if, and look at the dumpster fire that were the Republican debates, where Donald Trump sat out. Some of the things they said were not only unhinged, but factually inaccurate. But because they are either dog whistling or signaling to their base that I am your leader, I am your guy, in case Trump isn't, which he will be, they cheer and they hoot and they holler and they applaud. And when one goes after the other, they go, oh, oh. I think if you remove the crowd from these debates, you'll get far better answers. And it will be in stark contrast of essentially having a reality show style background. Just imagine, when we had the debates in 2020 and there was no crowd, it felt a little more real, didn't it? Instead of having whoever a network picks to help their candidate on that stage. So if Stephen A. and Donald Trump were to do this, number one, I'd be happy to moderate. I'll throw my hat in there. And number two, I would not have a crowd there. I know, the networks are going to want the reactions. That's fine. Have them online. Do not sway the American voter where, let's be blunt about it, our education system is very porous. Do not allow anyone to be swayed. And lastly, I'll say this. If one were to pay attention to history and a presidential debate that was studied between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy Jr., on the radio, people thought that Nixon won the debates. On television, because it was youth versus elder statesmen, some thought JFK won. Really what it shows to me is a stark contrast of how the American voter perceives these debates and how we can negate anything that could sway them in one direction or the other and keep it as neutral as possible. Am I crazy or am I onto something? Let me know, holler at me in the comments. And also, if we missed any story at any point in time and you want to submit one, get at me. I'll throw up the graphic. Get at me on Twitter, on Instagram, and TikTok. As I've said before, there are only so many hours in a day. I can only get to so much, and there's only so much that I do see. Whether it is the local level or the national level or the global level, doesn't matter. If you see something that you think we should cover and do a deep dive on, holler at me.